Okay, today I am introducing the Venn diagram lab today. It's part of your homework. It's not due till Friday, by the way. But since we don't have too much for homework tonight, you may as well get it going tonight. And again, it's due when? Friday. Friday, good. So in this lab, you're going to basically make a Venn diagram from the results of a poll. You're going to ask people questions. Okay, make it interesting. Make it something you're actually curious, like, I wonder what my friends think about this. So make it something interesting to you. All right, then you're going to be answering these questions, which is like the third slide in this. This was found under labs, of course. So if you're at home and looking for this, look for it under Schoology in our class. We have a folder called labs. It's the only lab in there, so it won't be tough to find the Venn diagram lab. Then as you're actually doing it, which is down here on the fourth page of the lab, is where you actually can do your lab. I just left you space so you don't have to create a whole new document. Just do your lab right here. And what things would you want in your lab? I would go back to this, which is the rubric, which is the format for all the labs we're going to do. So first thing it asks you for is purpose. State the purpose of this lab. You may not just say exactly what I said back here and retype all of that. That's dumb. I want you to summarize in your own words. What are you supposed to do for this lab? Okay? And I'm not going to even give you a sample of it. It's not every single direction. It's just what's the main point of this. Okay? So again, I don't want to say, here's what you should say. But summarize basically, what are you doing in this lab? That's the purpose. That's worth 2 points. Next is a sketch. A lot of people ask me on this one, do I need to, it says in there something about include a picture of you in action. It'd be kind of lame to have you drawing a circle Venn diagram, okay? So the Venn diagram is the sketch in this case. Does that make sense to you? If we're going to already have a sketch, you might as well not make a sketch of you making a sketch. That's a little bit much. So the sketch is the Venn diagram. Notice that it says you're supposed to label it. If you don't have a label on your Venn diagram, that would be a problem. Okay, the next one, procedure. It's not worth as much as calculations because you're just saying in words, generally, what did you do? I polled my friends. I asked them this question. I recorded the data. Then I made a few questions about the data, and I have a probability chart to show for it. That would be an example of the procedure. Calculations. This is where you actually get the answers to the 3 questions that you wrote. Okay, so you're going to write 3 questions about your Venn diagram. And then the conclusion is actually what's the answer to your questions. But notice it says and reflection, and a lot of kids lose points on the reflection part because math reflection lists 3 math-centered things that you learned. You can't say math is cool. That doesn't count. You have to say things like, I learned it's actually a pain in the butt to gather data because of blah, blah, blah. Or I learned that in this case, one of the results surprised me. I couldn't believe that my friends really liked The Walking Dead and I never even watch it, or whatever. Okay? So conclusion, don't just write the answer down. Also have reflections about what you learned, and then you'll get your full 4 points. Since you're supposed to have 3 math-centered things that you learned, if you only have 2, I guarantee you're going to lose a point. So this would be smart to look through when you're done, and just kind of like a checklist. Did I do my purpose? Yep. Do I have my sketch and is it labeled? Yep. Did I write out the procedures like what I did? Okay, check. And then the calculations is actually grinding out the math of the problems. And that's worth 8 points, so make sure you do a good job in there. And then did I do those reflections? Because I'm sure you'll have the conclusion in the conclusion section, but would you also have the reflections? Okay? You can get 20 out of 20 on this. It's not impossible to do. But I will say that a 20 out of 20 has to like sing. It has to be beautiful. It has to be, maybe your explanations are typed up instead of scrawled. I'm going to want it to be really nice to get that 20 out of 20, including typing it up. You don't have to type it up. It'll also be easier for the person to read, and you're less likely to lose little points along the way because they can read everything. All right. Yes? Good question. It depends. Every now and then, we will throw this into the test category. We're not telling you when. Yeah, exactly. Makes you do a good job all the time. Dang it, that's not fair. Do a good job all the time. Be prepared that it's in the 85, but it rarely will be. But sometimes it will be. All right, so do a good job. And you can have the easiest 20 out of 20 that you've ever had on that day because tests are normally a lot harder. You have to study for them and it takes a whole month's worth of, or not month, a couple weeks worth of material. And these will just be like something you wrote up some Friday night or whatever. So do a good job because you never know when they're going to be at 85 or when they're going to be 15 because it just depends. All right. So that's due when? Friday. All right, good. If you have more questions about it, feel free to ask me after class or email me. All right, the next thing we are doing in class here is we're going to take a little multiplication test. It may seem really dumb, like I'm in honors pre-calculus. What on earth do I need to show that I'm good at multiplying for? Because I'm going to have a calculator on everything I do. No, you're not. At least half the tests in here will have no calcs allowed. And so they'll have things in them like 7 times 6. And if you're like, I don't know that one, you're going to get problems wrong that you really shouldn't have. So we're going to just remind you that knowing your multiplication facts is still important even at your old age. So I'll give you another example of why that's important. If you are good enough in math to be in this honors pre-calc class, and yet you still struggle with one of those combos like 9 times 6 or whatever, I want you to get it over with right now and get it memorized. Because if you're sitting in a board meeting at Apple someday, which honestly, considering how bright you guys are and what your future potential is, any one of you could possibly be on the board at Apple Company. And it comes up that, okay, well, we got 9 groups of people going. We're going to need 6 for each of them. That's, hey, what is that again? And exactly. If you don't know that one, and you're like, I can't multiply, that's going to make you look like you're terrible at math and don't deserve to be sitting on the board of Apple Computer. So if you grab your calculator to do 9 times 6, it's going to be embarrassing. So anyway, now if it's 93 times 68, even Steve Jobs is going to grab his calculator and do that on the calculator. So we need to know those base skills also because there's tests in here that have no calculator. All right, so would you find the link right now in Schoology? I'm putting a link there called multiplication test. And I may only do this once all year, but I want you to do this test. Don't hit the big green button to start it yet until I tell you. And then once you start it, it's going to be timing you to see how long it takes you to answer the questions it gives you. And then it's going to tell you what % you got right at the end. If you do bad on this, are you banned from this class? Of course not. I do want you to do well, but it'll just give me an idea of who might struggle with the little stuff that might hold them back from the big stuff. And if you do struggle, all I'm going to do is give you some ideas on how you can get better. All right, so ready to hit the button? On your mark, get set, go. So any reflections? You finished now. Any of you have like good memories of that as a kid? Like you were always the kid who was really fast at that stuff? Yeah, a bunch of you. Some of you have nightmares about that? The pressure? Did any of you actually not ever have those? You never had time tests throughout elementary? Never? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, so it looks like most of you experienced them before. I know it's really rare to do it in high school, but I just thought it would take like literally, I think for most of you it took like 2 minutes, maybe 3. I don't know what the winning times it would be, but I could tell you that most people missed 1 or 2. If you miss a lot, then look back at the ones you missed and make sure that you got those down, like you actually know what they are. Because it'll be handy for those reasons we talked about before, especially because we have some tests without calculators, so fair warning. All right, there is some really cool research on how kids learn those things, and there's new ways to learn them that are really cool, that are better than just say it over and over to yourself. 9 times 6 is 54. That's not always the best. Okay, so anyway, let's move on to some review. Next, I want to be reviewing the top 20. So everybody, take out your top 20 version 1. You made a shortcut to it on your iPad, remember? A one-touch? If you didn't, you actually have to go like do 15 clicks now because you were too lazy to make the one-touch before, or maybe you were absent. So if you need to get back there, it's at davidserver.com. Also, algebraninja.com works too, by the way. Had to go to the same spot. But in case you ever forget it, as long as you know your math teacher's name, you got it. All right, and then go to top 20 version 1, and anyway, but if you have the one touch, you're already there. I want to tell you, my daughter last night showed me her PSAT test, because they give you a copy of it when you're done with it. And she did well on it, but she missed a few, and she showed me, her test. I got to actually look at what kind of questions were on there, and I was so happy to see a whole bunch of top 20 kind of stuff. I'm not saying everything, but there was a bunch of it. And one of them was just like number 9. Everybody look at number 9 here. So, how many of you have mastered that kind enough that you could do it? Only a couple of you, all right? So let's talk about that one. I'm going to make another one that's kind of like that. Right now, you will need a blank notability doc, so you can go back and forth between the two. All right? You can do a 4-finger swipe if you want to go back and forth if you want. I'm going to keep asking you to open up that top 20. But here's one that's like number 9. Let's say that that was the problem. Who remembers what we should do to fix it? Then it won't have fractions anymore. You can make a common denominator, yes, but there's an even better way. That would work, but there's a better way. It's way faster. Yes? Multiply by the denominator. What if I have a choice between a 5 and a 4? Do both. 5 times 4 and 5 times 4. You do it to everything. Now, the reason we left it as 5 times 4 instead of 20 is that it's already pre-factored. And then you can see what cancels. Go ahead, do it quick and finish it off. Get the answer, compare it with the kid next to you. You just multiply by the denominators all the way through. I'll pause for a second while you try it. Okay, did you notice that that canceled that? This canceled this. And now you have 8n plus 5 times 1 is 5 equals 10 times 4 is 40. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. From there, it's just subtract 5 divided by 8, piece of cake. Okay. So, do you get how we went from only 6 people were confident on that one to, I bet you, how many of you feel confident you could do another one like that? See, these don't take that long. And yet they will help you. I'm telling you, they're going to come up. All right. Let's find another one. Is there any other one that you would like to see how to do, or how to do quicker than you did? What do you think? Number 5, read it to me. All right, awesome. The first step on this guy is to get the squared off of there. All right, so I'm going to take a square root of both sides. Now, when you take a square root, it undoes the squared, and you have x minus 3 left. But if you just leave it like that, you're going to get it wrong. Square root of 7 is still the square root of 7. Oops. So I don't know what that is, so I just leave it as square root of 7. What is wrong with what I just wrote? He knows. He knows. He knows. What do you think? Yes. The absolute value of x minus 3. For some of you, you're like, what are you even talking about? It's because we did the square root of a variable. When you have x squared, and you square root it, you don't get x. You get the absolute value of x. Here's why. We do agree that x squared can be equal to 16, and the answer is 4 and negative 4. See, if all you do is go square root, square root of x squared is x equals square root of 16 is 4. Do you see how you lost an answer? And no, you can't just slap in plus and minus, because then you're going to think that the square root of 16 is 2 things, and it's not. The square root of 16 is not 2 things. I get how some people think that, but when you have the principal square root sign, this sign right here, that means the principal, or the positive square root of 16, it's just 4. It's this side that's messing it up. It's because it's the absolute value of x is 4. That leads you to 2 equations, x equals 4, x equals negative 4. And I know some of you think you have a shortcut, always just slap a plus and minus on it. It does not work when you get to the harder problems. Trust me, this absolute value thing is important. As evidence right here. Now, what am I supposed to do? Absolute values are supposed to be broken into two parts because what's underneath here could either be the square root of 7 or the negative square root of 7, and it would still work. So that's what you do. You rewrite this exactly the way you see it without the absolute value. Then you have to do it again, except writing the exact same thing twice would be madness. So you have to say, okay, it could be the square root of 7, or this could be the negative square root of 7. There's the difference. Now I add 3 to both sides. And this one's x equals either 3 plus root 7 or root 7 plus 3. It does not matter which one's first. I'll say 3 plus root 7. And over on this other side, add 3, and this is going to be x equals 3 minus root 7. There's your two answers. 3 plus root 7, 3 minus root 7. Sir? It actually would work. It actually would work. Okay, and if you got a different answer, then you probably messed up after that. But the quadratic formula only works if you have it set equal to 0. So you'd have had to move this. Oh, so you move that to the other side. Then the problem would be you probably had a number with the square root of 7 in it, and then you had to do things like x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then somewhere in there you were supposed to stick the square root of 7 in a bunch of places, which gets really complicated. So this way is probably better for this kind of problem. But I respect the fact that you knew that you could square this thing all the way out and then use quadratic formula. That's actually a very good approach. It's just this square root of 7 that messes it up. Okay, so to see if you really understood what I just said, I'd like you to solve this one. If you're not doing it with absolute values, then something's wrong. I'll pause for a second. Let me try that one. Okay, so have to say though, favorite burger, those Maynard's burgers are pretty amazing. You don't get those for $5, but they're amazing. So, all right, absolute value of a minus 2 equals square root of 3. Did you get the absolute value in there? I hope you did. All right, then you split this into two things. A minus 2 is square root of 3, and a minus 2 is square root of 3. But I can't do the exact same thing twice. Put a negative on that one. That's the only difference between the two. Then you go through and finish by adding 2 to both sides. A equals 2 plus root 3. And over here we have a equals 2 minus root 3. There are your two answers. 2 plus root 3 and 2 minus root 3. How many of you got it right that time? Much better. Okay, cool. You're getting smarter. So whatever we didn't talk about just now, it's your job to clean those up at home. Do the one-touch thing. Remember that the little brackets in there, those numbers in the bracket, like let's say you need skill number 212. When you touch it, it links you right to the video where that skill is. Just remember, it might have 5 skills under that one video, so you may want to write down, okay, I need skill 212, and then when the video pops up, make sure you fast forward to that skill. Otherwise, you're going to, by accident, be learning a whole bunch of things that you might or might not need to know. All right, enough of that. That was the top 20 review. Your homework related to that is that, again, by Friday, you have nothing due tomorrow, just to clarify, but you have 2 things due Friday now. The lab I assigned you before, and this top 20 version 2. You already did version 1. Now I want you to do version 2, and I want you to do it timed. I'm fine with you dividing it into 2 parts, for instance, doing 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, but don't give yourself more than 10 minutes, sorry, total of 20 minutes to do the top 20. Because in the real world, when you take the ACT or the PSAT, they are timed. And it's in the neighborhood of a minute per problem. So you've got to be able to handle that speed. That's why I'm pushing you on speed a little bit. Because when those tests come, I want you to be able to handle that time pressure. Some kids may be able to, in fact, I think almost all of you could answer every single question on the ACT if you were given an hour per problem. You could take time, figure out all the possibilities and narrow it down, and you could for sure be right. On everybody in here get a 36 if I give you 36 hours to do the ACT test. But the problem is you don't. You get 1 minute per problem. Got to know your crap so that you can do it fast. All right, so what's next? We're doing a little bit of review. But first, I have learned to recognize when people are kind of winding down and you need a short break. So I'm going to pause for a second. So we're back, and here is a probability review question. I'm going to make it more difficult in a minute, but to start with, I just want you to find the probability of M intersect X. That's a probability of. This is an N as in a number of elements in, not R. Okay, I'll pause for a second while you try this one. It does add up to 31. We already have that, so that'll help. Some kids are done already, so I'm going to show you the third part to the question. The third part to the question is to shade in, and this is where they get tricky, shade in not M union X intersected with R. And shade in the little areas that are your answer. If you do some work ahead of time to, like, shade this and shade that and then overlap the shade and whatever, clean it up so the only thing that's shaded is the final answer. And I want you to compare your three answers to the kid sitting next to you. Don't just show it to them. Ask them if they're ready. When you're ready. I'll pause. Okay, even if you're not done, I'm going to start. Probability of M intersect X. Here is where M and X intersect right there. And so those two would win, so to speak, 2 out of 31. Raise your hand if you had 2 out of 31 for that first one. Good, that's probability, so you got to divide it by something. The N is the number of elements of, or the number of numbers in, not R. All right, well, where is not R? It's everything that's not those guys. So I'm going to cross those guys out, and it's everything else. So it's 0 and the 12 and the 1 and the 1. So that's 14. Raise your hand if you had 14 for that one. Good. And the next one is definitely the hard kind, and that is where you got to try to overlap with this and union with that. Union means joins with. So not X joins, sorry, not M joins X. Here's not M. All of these people are getting an invite to the party, the not M's. Then they also have invites for the X's. They're going to join up with the X group. The X group is all these guys. Now, if you got an invite from either group, you are in. You get to go to the party. Do you get that only sections 1 and 3 there are not included so far? Okay. Now I've got to do an intersect or overlap with R. Okay, I'm going to make R the blue shade region. R is right here. So now the question is, in this R circle here, where am I going to get double shaded? Am I going to get double shaded in there, in that zone? Yes, it's going to be in the original group and it's in R. So yeah, that's part of it for sure. Okay. How about in this little area here? Is that getting double shaded? Yeah. How about this area right here? Did that get invites from both the original thing and this? So therefore, intersect. Okay. How about this little area right there? No, does not get double invites. These guys got double invites. A lot of people include this area right here, but they're wrong. Why? It doesn't intersect with R. Very good. Yes, briefly. All right, so here's another one to just make sure you're okay with that. I'll make this A and B and C, and would you please shade in not A, union, not B, intersect with C. I'll pause for a second while I give that one a try. Me there. All right, so here's the final answer to that one. Sorry I didn't get that on the recording, but it's this green shaded area. That's where it's double shaded, where it's in C, but it's also in this group. And the only thing it didn't include is that little wedge right there. Okay, that's enough practice on that for now. So now, last topic is notations. What if I said it was from 5 to 7 and it included 7? Between 5 and 7, but it included 7 and it didn't include 5. That's really easy to do as a number line. Everybody do it as a number line. Then make it interval. This is number line. This is interval. 5 to 7 and it includes 7. Last but not least, I want you to write it in set builder. And you must use an intersect. See if you can handle that one. I'm going to pause for a second while you try that one. Okay, here we go. So, set builder. That's the hardest one. These are easy. 5 to 7, filled in, empty. What could you have also used there? Bracket. And what there? Parenthesis. Okay, good. And this is 5 to 7, and I got to put a bracket there. Raise your hand if you're with me so far. Okay, good. The set builder is the hard kind. And it's X, and you have to have these scripty things on both ends. X where X is between, and it has to have, I'm going to put that in there, an intersect symbol. And then what has to be overlapped with what? Well, think of it this way. Look back at the number line. If I made it go this way and that way, then I just need to see where they intersected. So I want X is bigger than 5 and X is less than or equal to 7. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Nice. All right. Question? For set builder, you need these squiggly things on the end, and I know you may not be perfect at making them, but do your best. It should not just be a regular bracket. Yes? All right, you could have used a union, but it's more tricky, actually. You'd have to say the numbers. If I said the numbers that are bigger than 5, and I just put a union here, that would not have worked. Let me tell you why. When you say the numbers that are bigger than 5 and you do a union, anybody who gets an invitation is in the answer. Do you get things like 8, 9, and 10, and 11 are bigger than 5, but they didn't get in the final answer? That's why union would not be right. Because if I actually do a union symbol here, it would mean everything that got an invitation was the answer. So you'd have all of these would have to be shaded in this way and that way forever, and that's basically everything. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted only between 5 and 7, and therefore we did not want a union. We wanted an intersect. Now you could have done an intersect, but you had to do it differently. You could have, or sorry, a union. You could have done a union between 5 and 7, and could have done a union between like 5 and 6. Like X has to be less than or equal to. This is going to be complicated, but I can do it. 5 to 6 union with between 6 and 7. There, I made it a union, but that's much more tricky. Yes? So if a practice writes set notation that we don't know if it's union or intersection, then you're probably going to get it wrong, but go ahead. If one of them is for sure like a filled-in bubble or a bracket, then you know it's an intersection. No. No, but how about this? If you've got it confined between two things like this, you can always use intersect. How about that? Okay. All right. Okay. So that's enough review for today. You got 2 things. Nothing's due tomorrow, but 2 things due Friday. So don't be dumb and like make yourself do it all on Thursday night. That's all I got for you.